The war in Ukraine having passed its 500th day, an upcoming NATO summit in Vilnius, Lithuania, is attracting much interest. Among the thorniest issues to be discussed on Tuesday will be expanding the alliance by adding Sweden and providing a pathway for membership to Ukraine. On Sunday, US President Joe Biden spoke to the Turkish leader Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who's objected to adding Sweden to NATO. Now Erdogan is saying Ankara, however, could approve Sweden's NATO membership bid if Europeans open a way to his country's EU bid. After becoming an EU candidate in 1999, talks stalled 8 years ago over European concerns about Turkish human rights violations. Let's hear the Turkish president.
50 yılı aşkın zamandır
Turkey has been waiting at the door of the European Union for over 50 years now, and almost all of the NATO member countries are now members of the European Union. I am making this call from here to these countries that have kept Turkey waiting at the gates of the European Union for more than 50 years. I will also make this call in Vilnius. Come and open the way for Turkey's membership in the European Union. When you pave the way for Turkey, we'll pave the way for Sweden, as we did for Finland.
Nasıl onun önünü açtıysak, İsveç'in de önünü açalım.
And let's cross now to Pierre Benazet in Brussels. Pierre, we now know what Turkey wants in order for NATO to get its support for Sweden's membership bid.
Yes, it's rather clear. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has put a series of demands on the table ever since the pre-negotiation started last year, even before the Madrid summit, where the memorandum of understanding was signed between Turkey, NATO and Finland, and nothing in that memorandum of understanding mentioned anything about the EU membership. And obviously nobody is calling it a blackmail because that's not what they say in diplomatic terms. But as for the German Chancellor and as for the European Commission, these processes are entirely separate. And some here underline also the fact that the NATO membership, the EU membership of Turkey and the EU negotiations between Turkey for Turkey to the European Union were never mentioned at the time where they were negotiating the accession of Finland to NATO. So all NATO members are not members of the EU and vice versa. So there is no connection whatsoever. That's what the European Commission says. But obviously those are demands from Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And he knows that he can demand anything. It probably is a demand that's going to derail the whole process because it seems that this is completely unreasonable in an official way. That's what we can hear behind the scenes, that this demand of the EU accession talks is completely unreasonable and has no link with NATO whatsoever. So it may have been put forward in order not to give way to this request by Sweden to join NATO, since Turkey has gained everything that he wanted to gain in terms of reforms, in terms of anti-terrorism cooperation with Sweden and due process with the Kurdish opposition, anything that was linked to that.
And NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg has just been speaking, I understand.
Yes, he was speaking with Gitanas Nausėda, the head of government of Lithuania, who hosts this summit in Vilnius as of tomorrow. And for Jens Stoltenberg, obviously the question of Sweden's accession to the alliance is of paramount importance. But since the talks have not been starting, he hasn't been talking yet to Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Premier Ulf Kristersson in Vilnius this afternoon. He's not concentrated on that topic. It still is open as to what he thinks. He's concentrated more on what NATO is going to be doing for the Ukraine, what signal NATO is going to send to Kyiv. As you know, not one member some members are not ready to give full NATO status to Ukraine until the war is ended. So for Jens Stoltenberg, the most important today is to give everything in its power to the Ukraine in order for Kyiv to win this war, to prevail against Moscow, in order to begin the talks on NATO accession for Ukraine. And in the meantime, NATO-Ukraine Council is to be created. More ammo, more personnel for training is going to be put on the table. The Ukraine is the most important topic, as you can imagine, for this NATO summit in Vilnius.